I think that it is safe to say that usually think that deceiving is wrong. Deceiving is not a good action. But I have found that we can, well, my thesis is that there is a good deceiving and there is a bad deceiving. We have to understand how to draw a line to distinguish these two kinds of deceivings. All my speech is about this question. So I give you now, if it works. I got this is safely. This is the overview I want to give you. So I will try to analyze, to picture in why deceiving is in place since the beginning of times when it comes to the human behavior, and not just the human behavior. And then I will try to give you a tentative definition that I will try to refine better on ongoing. And I will present you a few case studies that came across to me while in my job. I work in a university where there is a strong faculty of biomedical engineering, and biomedical engineering is a lot in deception. I will show you how. And then I will try to make a proposal in a question form, of course. I'm a philosopher after all, so I'm not in the business of giving answers, just in giving questions. Okay, so let's get started. I start with this quotation, this Latin quotation. Don't be worried about that. The translation, vulgus vult decipi, ergo decipiatur. That means, as we can say, the world wants to be deceived, so let it be deceived. Why I want you to start from here? Because there has been some idea running around that if there is a consent on both the parts of the deception, then the deception somehow it is allowable. Let's say, and I think it's not correct, but I think this is useful to underline, to highlight, since it put in place the idea of consent, that it is an important one when we come to deceiving. Let's consider this example. If I want to be beaten up because I'm a masochist, and I happen to have a friend who is a sadist, who has a wish to beat me up, is the beating right? Nope. Usually that's not considered that, even if it meets the desire, my desire, and the other one desire, and even if we agree, both of us agree upon this, the moral object of beating stays wrong. That's the whole idea. So you can consent to something bad going, and your consent does not turn the moral object into something else. That's the classic idea. But deception is not just about the consent or the intention, even if it somehow relies upon this. Okay, this is just an idea I wanted to share. I will go deep on this later. So, few others. Okay, I am not going to read the sonnet, but I just put in bold where I wanted to go with Shakespeare. I lie with her and she with me. We lied both. We are both happy. Lies can make people happy, and even if you know when you're lying, and even if there's agreement about being lied to. And that's the point. The point is that lying is, I'm not going to say that is not always wrong and it is always right. There's a sort of middle ground. We have to understand why lies come into place, the kind of lies. In the previous speech we have been different kind of idea of withholding truth. The idea of truth is really more complex than we see. Okay, and now I'll start to pay my first debt about the history of lying. These are the Magura cave in Bulgaria, but I could have shown you even the Altamira or the Lascaux paintings. Here it is interesting. We are not just seeing some fictional representations for really many thousands years ago. Here we are already seeing a deception in place. We are seeing human disguised like animals in order for the hunt to be successful. Not just some hunting deceit, just the disguise itself. It was since the beginning that it was a technique for humans to be successful in hunting. And that's one for to quote. And then there's the whole game field. When you play a game, you play roles. You agree with others that we are playing that roles. We mutually agree that we are not what we are playing, and yet we are playing these roles in order to the game to be successful, to be amusing, to be distressful, to be all the things that games brings about. And even these are really old, ancient, from the dawn of times. Let's use this form. So, to mention that lying and deceive have always been with us, and have always been problematic, of course, but we need to make sense of the use that deceive has been come along. So, this is the tentative definition I borrow from the literature, strictly speaking, from Thomas Carson, Lying and Deception, 2010. So, roughly, deception is intentionally, this is the key words, causing someone to have false belief that the deceiver believes to be false. It's not just that you have to turn the other belief. You need to know that those beliefs you want to turn him up are false. Or, more simple, cause to believe what is false. So, false belief is the effect of the deception. Just the effect. Deception is more complex. But it can occur even unintentionally, and therefore it should not be deemed as deception. This is the difference between deception and mislead bona fide. Let's think of it, because you can, when you lie, usually you lie making a statement. You can deceive even without uttering a word. You can deceive just by your behavior. Consider this example, this scenario. I'm going very confidently in a way as if I know truly well the direction I'm heading to. And people behind me see me so confident with my direction and follow me. Of course, I was wrong about the destination, and I've misled even the other person who was beside me. I didn't intend to mislead him or to fake, or how to say, to deceive his, but that happened. I caused him to have a false knowledge, but I did not want to do that. So that's not a deceiving action, since a decoy, a trick happened somehow. So intentions matters. The definition, the technical definition that has been worked out, I agree to some extent with this one, is the following. A person deceives another person if and only if intentionally cause the subject one to believe X where X is false and she does not believe that X is true. Okay, and that's for the starting point. When we have to talk about deception, we have to take in mind we have an object about someone is to be deceived, that is to be thought to be false, someone who wants us to turn our mind about that object, and we, the deceivers, who have to think that this object is not the way they want to be perceived. Okay, now let's go through some cases, study cases I've been working on so far. Neural interfaces. You know, there's this new, intriguing, fascinating fields of prosthetics. The new generation prosthetics are really something. It's really interesting. They just do not just work about an effective effectors. You know, you have a amputee, you have lost your hand. Now you get this new device, these new prosthesis. You have your new hand, which can grip, can grasp things, but the new generations do more. New generations prosthetics do more. What do? They just give you the feedback signals on your brain cortex in order for you to understand where your hand is, a kind of sense of touch and thing, and go on. It is working on. It is, of course, they need to be refined. There are more technical details that need to be taken care of, but this is the idea. You don't have just a tool in your hand. You have your hand and the feedback that you are here, what you have here is your hand. This is a kind of deceiving, of course, because you have not your hand. You have here a tool. We are hacking our nervous system, and when you talk to the brain surgeons, to the physiologists, they use this kind of vocabulary. We need to hack our nervous system in order for the brains to read the neural dialogue between the machine, the tool, the hand, the robotic hand, and the brains, and we need the brains to believe this is your hand, even if it is not. This is a kind of deception, of course. It falls under the previous category. This is kind of a good deception. This is the point I want to make. But why this is a good deception? I'm going here to anticipate my thesis, since I do not want to show it as a magician. The thing is that There should have been a hand, and now there is not anymore. That's the whole point. We are faking a perception about something that there should have been there. So we are not falsifying, strictly speaking. We are just giving a fictitious sensation that should have been in place if everything had been as it was supposed to be. It is our physiology that demands that there to be a hand. Something happens, an incident, an accident happened, and we have no anymore our hand. So another thing would have been if we had hacked our nervous system in order to perceive a hand on our back. That would not be a good deception because our physiology is contrary for us to have a hand on our back. But to have a hand where it should have supposed to be, that's correct. That's a kind of technical deception. I'm assuming it's a deception we can work with, we should work with. But another example, the well-known phantom syndrome, phantom limb syndrome. You know, when it happens that you lose your limbs, you lose maybe half of your leg, and the missing part of your leg is still aching. You feel pain where you should not, since you have your leg anymore, and yet you feel that pain. There's a lot of literature about this pain and the treatment about this pain, and the new kind of treatment are deceptive themselves, since this is not just drugs anymore. They put you in front of a mirror, and your brain is misled to think that what you are doing with your working arm, let's say it's a arm that you are going to miss, it's redirecting your wires on your brains on the other missing arm or limb or whatever. And so your nerves somehow start to heal. And there's a growing literature about this healing project. What are we doing here? We are somehow triggering a placebo effect that is a real effect. It's not a placebo in a mild way. It's a biochemical effect that you can see by this kind of device. We are deceiving, of course, we are deceiving. We are making your brains to think that this other arm is like this missing arm. This is another example of good deception. Pay attention, I'm not talking about good in a moral sense. Even though I'm a moral philosopher, I'm not interested here and now about the intentions. We are all well intended while doing this. I'm talking about the fact that this deception, maybe we should find another word, but this deception is a natural deception somehow, because even here, our physiology urges us in order to to integrate what is going to be, what was missing. That's the basic point I'm making here. The last example, this is very interesting. This is Sham Surgery. I don't know if you ever heard of it. In Europe, this would be impossible. Basically, what they do, they fake a surgeon. Let's say here we have a knee surgeon, but it is being thought to be extending even for bariatric surgeon. Bariatric is the kind of surgery which cut you off a bit of your stomach in order so you can't eat so much anymore to prevent obesity and things so far. So the idea is, I just do you the scars, but I do not do the real surgery. I patch you up, and then we'll see how it works. And guess what? It works fine. The placebo effect in place heals people. But in order to have placebo effect, you need to see the scars. Of course, there can't be a consent in here. That's the problem why here in Europe you can't have this kind of sham surgery. There are lots of ethical medical issues, of course, and yet it works. And why this could be, in my view, of course, it's not been, but why this could be an acceptable deception? Because at the end of the day, this is done aiming to preserve your organs. You are going to cut less the person. If this can work out, of course, if this can work, and growing evidence are showing that yes, this is the case, then you are preventing a more harmful engagement. This is decepting, of course, in a bad way, because the previous scenarios, pay attention, were mutually agreed upon. In this scenario, we are really deceiving someone. We are making him think things that are not. We are deceiving without any excuses. And yet, we are deceiving in a good way, my take is. And now, I'm going to end with these few pictures. I'm changing a bit the scenarios. I'm talking about Gestalt theories and so on. You see, these are the very well known. I assume you all have already seen these pictures. Gestalt theory says that we somehow our mind read things beyond the things itself. We, as Anna Nin said, we do not see the world as it is, we see it as we are. Our eyes are giving more context to these few scattered figures in order to make sense of them. Of course, there are not triangles in the right picture, and yet we see triangle. We integrate this information, and the process of the integration of the pieces of information we have, it's a well-studied one. So we are giving more context. Pay attention. We are talking about perception. Perception and deception, as the etymology will help us to understand, are on the same field. Ception comes from the Latin capio, capis, cepi, captum, capere, for those who like paradigms. Capio means to take. So perception is to take a whole, to take as an integrated information. Deception, and we are here perceiving in a deceptive way, is always to take something in, but with a narrow perspective. When we are deceiving, we are always taking, and the Gestalt psychology explains that every perception is a kind of deception. That's the take. There's not such thing as a pure perception. Every perception somehow is filtered. We leave out not relevant informations from, and this filtering has been trained. There's a lot of growing and ever-growing literature on this. I will show you something more just to get amused. Whenever you, I don't know if it works, when you start staring this, of course it's still, it does not move, and yet it appears as if it was moving. Why is that? Because of the micro-adjustment movements our retina has to do. Usually we see this in another way. We don't see it as it is, as I've said before, but we see it as we are. And in this case, as we are, as our physiology of sight is. We see our physiology somehow here by looking at these circles and this texture and so on. But maybe this is even more clear. What we see at the first is garbage. Just garbage. But then experimenters have made this idea, why we don't try to project some shadows who resemble, who give a shape, an hint for us to read the garbage within that shape in mind. And when we get somehow familiar with the picture, we started to see the shape, the two lovers or sitting friends or whatever they are on the screen. We start to see that image in the garbage piled up. That's how it works. That's how our perception is deceiving in, at a neural perceptive level. So I want to say here there is no intention to deceive in place, apart from the artistic side. It is just how it works at a lower level of consciousness, at a perceptive level, where judgment has not come in place. So there is a kind of deception perception embedded in real. So the question I would like to frame and is this one. So there is a kind of deception that we have already in here. We have to understand if in robotics we can apply this kind of deception or not. What kind of deception are we playing? And my take is there a thing? I think there is, or I think this is what we should aim for, of deceiving by design, because it is simple when you have. When I started to talk about the physiology of the hand, you have a physiology and then you have a pathology. It's simple. Physiology we can study and then we can understand how to fake something in a fictitious way. Pay attention to the difference between fictitious, something that maybe that is not literally true, but is true to another level. It's analogical like truth. Okay, we are faking your hand, but you should have a hand here. So we are not faking at all. I'm not giving you just false statements. I'm giving you maybe a fictitious statement. That's the different, a possible thing. It comes, at the end of the day, it comes about the object we are faking. Is it compatible with the object itself? This is the question we should ask ourselves in order to understand if this is an acceptable, a good deception or not. And this is why I can answer, yes, this is an acceptable deception, the one who fakes the hand where the hand should be. It is not the one who fakes the hand where the hand shouldn't be, according to the physiology of our body. But when we are designing robots, we have not the simple, that's not simple, but we have not the, we cannot refer to the physiology. Since the physiologist, we have not a nature who has built it up, but we have an engineer who designed it. So we need to understand if the design is compatible with the object the designer had in mind. And the way there is this compatibility. In old medieval Latin terms, we were talking here about the finis operis instead of the finis operantis. I don't know if you are familiar with this, maybe not, maybe it's a bit a jargon, but it's easily understood the difference between these two kind of contexts. Let's say we have to make a wall in order to defend ourselves from an enemy. To defend ourselves from the enemy is the intention of the ones who are going to build the wall. This the finis operantis, the goal, the end of the people who are going to build the wall. The finis operis is about the fact that when you have to build the wall to defend yourself, you have to build the wall according to the laws of the walls. So walls have to be straight, let's say that. So the finis operis, the ends inside, the inside end of the manufact itself has to be respected. And in the case of the wall, it has to be straight. Pay attention, if you have not a straight wall, it cannot be worked, it can be used even for the other finality, even for the intentionality, even for the finis operantis. But these are two separate things. I could call now with an updated language that the finis operis is the technical ends, and the other one is the goal in the more broadly in the intentional sense. So I take that deceiving is a technical requirement when we are designing robot. There may be a case that for a robot to work properly, you need to deceive somehow, and that can be accepted in a technical sense. Not in a moral sense. We are not deceiving broadly. I don't want you to have a false statement. And another, pardon me for the another quote I do. If we understand this under the category of logic, where there is just false and true, we cannot really address the issue. I've said before, we are in the fictitious realm, so in the realm of possibility, something that could be possibly like that or not. That's not just a simple 0-1, false or true. There's more a middle ground in here, and this is where the technical deception comes into place. So it may occur that in order to work, we need deception. In order to work, to be effective, and we need to understand if we need that kind of deception, I'm going to end, that could be the deception by design I'm referring to. So we could need to be deceived from a technical perspective, of course not from a moral one. That's all another set of problem. Well, I'm closing here now. This is a kind of bibliography. Thanks for your attention and patience.